Hi, I'm Joe Davidson with the Sacramento Bee. Welcome every week to The Buzz. We're going to bring you the best of high school sports, big on football. We're going to tell you about the teams, the coaches, the players, the communities, the campuses. High school sports isn't just an event. It's a happening. It's a social thing.
Welcome, everybody, to The Buzz. We're glad to be with you, and thanks for following along. And we shot that video clip before the season opener. I think it was August 20th. And look where we are now. We're in the cool chill of December, and we only have a few teams left in the Sac-Joaquin section for football. We're going to show you this quick graphic here by our producer, David Caraccio. Could not do the show without him, but this is what it looks like. These are the section champions of local teams of note as we reach the CIF NorCal regional finals. Familiar teams: Folsom, Manteca, Vanden, Escalon, Sutter of the northern section, soon to be of the Sac-Joaquin section, Argonaut, LeGrand. Folsom is the only team from the 916 still alive. That's been kind of common for the last several years, with Folsom being this deep into the playoffs. And we will break down that Folsom De La Salle matchup with Mitch Stevens here a little bit of Max Preps and the San Francisco Chronicle. All those teams, a lot of those are small school teams, Argonaut, LeGrand. They just really support their teams. We saw them in their section finals at Hugh Stadium on Sacramento City College campus. And it's just so cool to see those teams and those regions just follow them out. And it looks like we're going to have good weather again. So that's what I'm talking about is Escalon. Sutter's up by Yuba City, LeGrand, southern part of the section, Manteca, a good showing, Vanden of Fairfield Travis Air Force Base, playing for a couple players that they've had who have since died. A lot of motivation for high school football, so good to see. So again, we're going to have Mitch Stevens of Max Preps and San Francisco Chronicle. We'll talk about De La Salle, and he's covered that team and that program for a lot of years. There's a reason why they're so good. It's rooted in fundamentals and blocking and tackling and superb coaching. Folsom is 0-5 against De La Salle. This Sac-Joaquin section is 0-45 against De La Salle since 1982 and 0-20 since 2012. We'll kind of break some of that down. We'll also ask Mitch about the hazing scandal at Mater Dei. Can the CIF, the governing body of high school sports, do anything about it? We'll clarify all of that. Jim Patrick, our editor and friend, is out today, but Cameron Salerno is back. He will join me later on. We break down the Folsom Rocklin finale, section Division I. And we'll also break down the top girls and boys basketball teams with some graphics showing the top 20s. Basketball's here. We're still finishing off football, so we'll be getting to all that soon enough. So we are here also to applaud Anna McNatt of McClatchy High School, who won the CIF State Division I Cross Country Championship in Fresno over the weekend. Had a great time. She's a junior 4-5 student. She's got a twin sister. She pulled an upset of sorts to win this great race, and I think she's our next great distance runner. Looking forward to seeing her in the spring. She's the first boy or girl athlete in the Sac City Unified School District to win a cross-country state championship. And the Sac City Unified School District has not had a cross-country or track and field runner ever win. So it's hard to break through. And so kudos to Anna McNatt, and only a junior. And when you have those kind of grades and that kind of running ability, you're going to go anywhere you want. She could be a Stanford type of recruit. One of the cool things about covering high school sports is being able to watch them when they're in high school, then in college, and then in the professional ranks like the NFL. Here's a fun video clip of Josiah DeGura's parents. He's out of Folsom High School, University of Cincinnati. He's a tight end for the Green Bay Packers, and he caught his first touchdown, and somebody was cool enough to shoot videos of his parents, Amy and Dean DeGura, as they watch their son score his first NFL touchdown. How cool is that? That was Scott Hagan with the video. Thanks for sending that to us, Scott. And that's proud parenting. Josiah DeGura only had a couple of scholarship offers out of high school. He played for a Folsom team in 2014 that went 16-0. Jonah Williams is a starting tackle for the Bengals. He was on that team. Jake Browning, the all-time most prolific quarterback anywhere, was on that team. He's now with the Bengals as well. So cool to see that. Great moment. Actually, it could have been, when Mitch and I meet each other, we have that kind of celebration. Let's bring in Mitch Stevens, my longtime friend from the San Francisco Chronicle and Max Preps. Actually, we go Max Preps and San Francisco Chronicle. We all know how that pecking order. My friend, good to see you. There you go. There's the Max Preps logo. I got I'm sponsored, endorsed as well. In fact, before we get going, because we are big on accuracy, I just want to make sure you're on the. Oh, you're now live. So there we go. Mitch, let's talk about De La Salle taking on Folsom again. You've covered this team for a long time. You got to know the coaches and the players. Bob Ladouceur, that great coach, 399 wins. Then he retires. Justin Allenball takes over. Longtime assistant coach. What is going on at De La Salle for 40 years where they just seem to own everybody in Northern California?
Well, first of all, to tell you how far I go back, they call me De La Mitch.
That's right.
Which is not something you want when you're supposed to be objective and so on. But yeah, no, I mean, I started in 1984 when they actually had turf fields, and but they right from the start, I wrote it really early. Whatever they have, they should bottle up. They get so much out of every athlete. Bob Ladouceur started it, and Justin Allenbaugh has.
And here's some footage here of the first matchup. And so what we've seen so far, Mitch, is execution, over the top touchdown pass, blocking punts, kickoff returns, and that was going on in the 80s, in the 90s, and it's going on now. And they just have a culture of people will say, oh, they recruit. Well, we don't hear about players coming in as sophomores, juniors, seniors. I think they're predominantly been 4-year players at De La Salle, and that's just kind of a shallow answer. People say the same thing about Folsom. Oh, they're recruiting or they're cheating, whatever. But they're just something. You're right. They got to bottle it up and capture it, because everybody's trying to close that gap in Northern California against De La Salle.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the games with Folsom. If we think about they played 5 times, and how many times right off the bat, De La Salle just hit him in the mouth. I can, besides this touchdown, Zeke Berry, the opening kickoff, 88 yards this last game, and I remember his tight end went 87 yards for a touchdown to start a game. Yeah, Hooper, Austin Hooper's in the NFL. So they hit him in the mouth. They get teams on their heels. I think they already have a 14-point advantage every time they play, just because of who they are. And teams feel like they got to play perfect. And maybe that's the case with Folsom and how it's been. So the start and the physicality of these games, they're physical. They're fearless too. They built a culture of being fearless and to go for big plays. And but physicality is a big part of it, and it should be this week as well.
Well, and Mitch, they also put some of their best guys on special teams. The open kickoff, and he's also the one who blew up Tyler Tremaine late in that game with a clean hit and knocked Tyler out for a few weeks. But Tyler's back. He's one of those classic Folsom Bulldogs, grew up through the ranks, really enjoys his role as quarterback, a 4.5 GPA, really makes a difference when he's in the lineup. You could just see that the team feels they're on the same page with him. You just don't have a lot of depth in high school quarterbacking. And so he's back. They're ecstatic about this rematch, this second shot. And Paul Doherty, the Folsom coach, was telling me this week, Mitch, he goes, this is what a great brand. And we have to clear that hurdle. We have to clear De La Salle. And I think I mentioned it earlier, Mitch, De La Salle is 20-0 against this section, the Sac-Joaquin Section, since 2012. That's 2 times they beat Folsom in 2012, 2013, when Folsom was 14-0 in the NorCal playoffs. And 7-0 against St. Mary since that time. 4-0, I think, against Del Oro and other teams. So they're doing it against everybody. De La Salle got off to a slow start by their standards, if that's fair, this season, with the loss to St. Francis of Mountain View, loss to St. Francis of Baltimore, I think is ranked 5th nationally. But they come right back, and they just find a way. And yet you were surprised that they were not the entry for the CIF State Open division.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, holy smokes, they have one hiccup in 30 years, right? They
Right,
lose
lost to St.
31
Francis.
right, and then suddenly, they're not formidable anymore. They only gone 318 games without losing to a Northern California team. The St. Francis game. I mean, that team ended up being fifth in the country, and they beat IMG Academy, for gosh sakes, which was unbeatable. I mean, so they recover the culture of it. This team is, as far as them and Sarah going head to head, yeah. I mean, I've had De La Salle ranked right behind St. Francis because St. Francis beat them. But until somebody beats them around the Bay Area and Northern California, I think they should always represent.
See, I disagree on that. Normally, you and I
Yeah.
agree, but I thought because St. Francis beat De La Salle earlier this year, ended that 30-year streak against Northern California teams north of Fresno, that it was St. Francis's open division or not. And so St.
Yes.
Francis went 10-0, beat Sarah of San Mateo in a league championship, but then Sarah of San Mateo avenged it in the Central Coast section. I said, good enough. That's their only other, they avenged their loss.
De La Salle didn't get a chance to, if De La Salle played them a second time, I mean, in their first meetings, in each of their first meetings, I mean, De La Salle's right down to the wire, and Sarah got beat by,
Yeah, good point. It's fair. And then De La Salle's been so good, so unusually good for so long that the CIF dropped the NorCal Open Division Championship after 2012 and 2013 when De La Salle beat these dominant 14-0 Folsom teams that just could not handle De La Salle. Right. And so the thinking was, as long as De La Salle keeps winning its North Coast section, then it should go down to the open game. And that's been the case for all these years, for most of the time until this year. Still won the North Coast section, but we'll see. And so the Sarah goes straight down to the state championship. They take on Modern Day, national number one. You've talked to that coach, Bruce Rawlinson, over the years. They've done amazing things down there. They got all these transfers. They got like 30 scholarship, kids with offers on their roster, but they got a big mess on their hands right now. It's leaked out that there's been a hazing incident, or maybe a number of them. What are your thoughts on that? And also people were asking me, Mitch, well, why doesn't the CIF, the governing body, go in and shut them down? Well, this is not a CIF matter. This has to be an on-campus issue. But what's your take on that whole hazing thing? Are you disappointed? I am. I just don't see how hazing fits in sports anymore when these are supposed to be your teammates and brothers.
I see it as a totally huge issue overall. I mean, how many hazing incidents we have to go through? It's a national issue. And it just so happens that the number one team in the country has had an incident, and no doubt about it. And it's put a big damper on that program. It's a great team, so on and so forth. But I think, I don't know what's going to happen, but the CIF, like you said, cannot intervene at this point. It's a legal matter. The DA office decided that it wasn't a legal matter at this point.
Well, the DA also said, Mitch, the district attorney, saying that it wasn't, in so many words, violent enough to be prosecuted because both of these people in this hazing incident, where you have a lighter weight guy taking on a heavier De La Salle or a modern day teammate, and they just punch each other silly. And there were people there, nobody broke it up. So it's like, wow, that's going to cause even more of a mess. And, how often has this happened? And has there been a pattern of it? And I hear the rumblings, and UC Davis baseball had a big hazing scandal here that put the program on ice, and it's going to set them back. And head coach was terminated, and a lot of players left. And, the point being that, you hear people reach out and say, well, these kids got to get tougher. It's just all about fun. Well, it's fun as long as somebody is not going to the hospital with a brain injury.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere. I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes. Their first segment was about hazing. Obviously, it was a college type thing, and it's dealing with drinking and so forth. But my gosh, there's just a common sense approach here. An oversight. I think that's the biggest problem that you cannot argue, is that where's the oversight here? Obviously, this happened. There's been a tape. You can see what happened, but coaches and administrators, just the oversight of it and the lack of that is definitely
it's concerning. And people, there's all this thing too, Mitch. We're not surprised because it's athletics and geez, they won't do anything because modern day is a football factory and all this. And it's like all of those things are going to be discussed and just rotten timing, of course, because somebody got hurt, but just here it is, the playoffs and all this is going on. And some people get mad at the media. Oh, there's the media trying to stir it up. Well, it has to be covered. When there's a lawsuit involved and when there's a hospitalization involved, when there's video involved, it needs to be reported on. And certainly if this happened at another school, you could darn well bet that modern day people would be just as curious about reading it. So we'll see. And I don't know. Hey, I don't know if you know the answer to this, kind of veering off course. We know that the CIF state finals are in Southern California this season. Is that going to continue next season? When's the next bids coming up? My point being, it used to be at Sac State for a few years, but I don't know if it's locked down there. And we haven't talked to Ron Chetty of the CIF about that. Yeah,
we need to. I believe there's one more year down there, but I'm not positive. And then maybe it can return to Sacramento.
Yeah, and it all goes to bids. The state CIF for all of its championship events. Well, why is the state finals in basketball always a golden one in Sacramento? Well, because they put the best bids. Why is state track and field always in Fresno? Right. They put in the best bids. So we'll see. Mitch, I'm putting in the best bid. You're the best. We appreciate you. Thank you for your insight. And we will.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe we'll have lunch tomorrow if you're.
Let's do it. Yeah,
maybe
come down.
Do parking lot hazing.
All right, Joe. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Mitch. We'll see you soon. My good friend Mitch Stevens of Max Preps and the San Francisco Chronicle does great work. Check him out on Twitter. Check him out online. Check him out in person. He's even better. So, there we go. All right, let's bring in Cameron Salerno. Mitch represents the old guard. I represent the old guard, and Cameron represents the new guard. Look, he looks refreshed. He's got the nice head of hair, which should have been sheared if we didn't have a 2-point stop. But Cameron, welcome aboard. Good to see you. And let's jump right into it. We only have one local team in the 916 left. That's the Folsom Bulldogs win the Section Division I championship at Hugh Stadium over Rocklin. You saw that. I saw that. Folsom won 20-3. 6 weeks ago, Rocklin won 40-7. Were you surprised by this outcome, and how did this outcome come about?
I wasn't really surprised necessarily because it's Folsom. Folsom has been dominant for so long in this section, but their defensive performance was, I think, incredible. It was the best defensive performance I've seen all season. I thought it was going to be Rocklin's defense versus Folsom's offense. That was going to be the key, but it ended up being Folsom's defense versus Rocklin's offense. And I mean, they thrived under that. And so I'm looking forward to not next week, tomorrow's game against De La Salle. I think it's going to be really good. I kind of going back to what you guys talked about earlier, I was really surprised Sarah got the open bid. I know we talked about it, and the logic makes sense, but I think De La Salle would give Modern Day possibly a better game just because they match up. They played each other better in the past. But, I mean, obviously we have De La Salle Folsom, and I think Folsom can beat De La Salle. I know you look at the record, and it's very grim what De La Salle has done to the Sacramento area and the Sac-Joaquin section. But, I mean, I'm a believer in Folsom. I think I saw what I need to see last week to give me that sense of confidence.
And that's very fair. I mean, we were on this show, and in the Sacramento Bee, in the print version, the electronic version, and social media circles, a lot of us projected Folsom to beat De La Salle back in week 7. Folsom was 6-0, healthy, in sync, looked great. De La Salle had 2 losses. Coaches were saying, hey, we're still haven't found ourselves. So we figured, well, if there's going to be a time where an area team beats De La Salle, this will be it. I mean, it didn't happen because De La Salle just imposed its incredible will, special teams, defense, offense. And kudos to Folsom. They lost 3 or 4 going down the stretch and then got Tyler Tremaine back at quarterback. And now they're 3-0 in the playoffs. So they've done a great job. High school sports are all about how do you respond to adversity and get knocked down and floored and decked. And so we'll see. And you can't reinvent the wheel. They have to still pass protect. Folsom does with Tyler Tremaine. You can't let him get rocked, and you can't give up big plays on special teams. Gave up the big 88-yarder to Zeke Berry in the opening kickoff, and then had a punt block inside the 5. So those are correctable things. But line play, physicality, defense, hitting. Justin Allenbaugh, the De La Salle coach, Cameron said after the Folsom win earlier, he goes, we were physical, and they really like that. So, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. What are your thoughts on Rocklin otherwise? They're 12-0. What was the theme of Coach Jason Adams? When you go 10-0, 11-0, 12-0, they expect to keep winning. They expected to get to a state final.
Yeah, I picked Rocklin to win just because they're rolling. They have an incredible offensive line, great run game. They're kind of like the 49ers in a sense, where their run game is their prominent offense, and then they go play defense, and that's how they keep themselves in games. And that's how they dominate, just like the 49ers did in 2019 when they made their Super Bowl run. And so I thought they would find that similar formula. They would control the clock, kind of like what Jesuit did the previous week, where they really established the run. It's kind of like the Monterey Trail formula. That's how you beat Folsom.
Exactly right.
You pound the rock and you take off time off possession. And so they just weren't able to do that. They were forced to pass, and they were forced to they're in 3rd and long, so they had to pass, obviously. And so that would really that's what hindered Rocklin, I think. Joe, let me turn it back on you.
Yes.
If Folsom beats De La Salle, hypothetically, would that be the biggest win in Sac-Joaquin Section football history?
Great question, Cameron. I have a story running tomorrow on that topic. 2 stories. I got one on Folsom, De La Salle rematch, what it means, how we got here. And then I got a side story on what are the biggest 10 wins in area football history. And the number one win I have all time in area football is 2008. Grant was picked for the CIF State Open Division game over De La Salle, and that was when the section commissioners pushed for it, and we didn't have as many bowl games. And Pete Sacco, the section commissioner, then said Grant should be the team, and the CIF administration challenged him and said, they have to at least compete. He goes, they'll compete and they'll win. Beat number 2 nationally ranked Long Beach Poly in a great game there. If Folsom wins tomorrow, that may supplant that because of what Folsom has done. I think Folsom, I have it in my story, Cameron. Folsom, or De La Salle rather, it has 410 wins and 6 losses against Northern California teams since 1984. And we know there's good football in Northern California. There's good football in the East Bay. There's good football in the North Coast section. There's good football up in the Sac-Joaquin section. There's good football here. It's just amazing what they do. It's the most dominant, impressive football program or high school sports program I've ever seen. And I don't want to hear any stuff about, they recruit. Well, they've never been sanctioned for it. They've never been tacked to the wall for it because it's just not true. And people are going to think we're naive and all that. But when people have evidence of undue influence and recruiting, they send it to the governing offices, but we haven't seen that. The De La Salle kids predominantly have been 4-year players, and so they've done it right. Nobody ever accuses De La Salle of running up the score or taunting. It just doesn't happen. It's just so incredibly rare, and we know that's hard to do, Cameron, because people get emotional in football. They get fired up and everything. So to answer your question, yes, if Folsom can beat De La Salle, I would register that as the biggest win in regional history, behind Grant beating Long Beach Poly in 2008.
And De La Salle has some star power, man. Zeke Berry, I think he's committing actually tomorrow. I think he's going to Michigan. You have Cooper Flynn,
player,
who's committed to Notre Dame. You have Tyler Henry, a defensive lineman who's committed to Sac State, actually. So, they have some good players. And
great players, great
what
system.
What impresses me most about De La Salle, kind of like you mentioned, they are strictly business. They are not going to taunt you. They're just going to punch you in the mouth, and they're going to run their veer. They're going to control the time possession. They're going to run the ball down your throat. And that's
when the game's over, Cameron, they hustle off the field. They bolt. And I think it would be great for Folsom in Sacramento and the Sac-Joaquin section and Northern California if Folsom could pull this off. And considering how Folsom got handled 31-10 back in October to De La Salle, to reverse that would be impressive. And that's what's fun about sports. A lot of us didn't think that Folsom would beat Rocklin after that beatdown from 6 weeks earlier. And, it's we've seen it before. I remember in 2015, I think Rocklin hammered Delaware in the regular season. And then in the rematch, it was Del Oro, and Del Oro went on to win a state championship. So those things happen. There's Tyler Tremaine here. He is such a gritty, courageous, tough player. He was under siege. They pass rushed him. That's the whole key, if you could stop that. And then De La Salle ran with power, ran with speed, passed over the top, did everything. So, Cameron, let's shift gears. We're now in the full bore hoops. Cameron's doing the girls basketball rankings. I'm doing the boys basketball rankings. So give us a follow all the time. We're really getting warmed up. One thing we do appreciate is coaches of note, including those who have milestone victories. That includes Mark Woodell, who just won his 600th game. Can you believe that, Cameron? He started his career in 1984 as a co-coach with Bob Jones at Cordova High School, and then a long stretch at Vacaville. Now the last several years at Wood High of Vacaville, thanks to our friend Joel Rosenbaum of the Vacaville Reporter. And so there's obviously, when Mark Woodell coaches, he does it with his mouth wide open. So he has the attention of everybody. His wife Holly has been a big fan. She kind of tipped us off on all this, but kudos to longevity. Who coaches that long anymore, because you love it. And he's been a real credit to high school basketball, and we'll get out there and we'll check them out real soon. So, all right, Cameron, let's break down the girls' rankings. These are your preseason girls' rankings. We don't have the records because we're going to update these here in a few weeks. But what do you think when you see 11 through 20? Who's a couple teams? I see some Sac City Unified School District teams that didn't play much in the spring. Other familiar faces like Colfax, Granite Bay, Christian Brothers. What's some thoughts?
Yeah, Christian Brothers, I think, had a big win last night against Intercom. I think so, if I remember right. Granite Bay also has some big wins this season, so I like them. And Vista Lago played really well during the spring. Lincoln as well. Lincoln had a tough loss against Del Oro last night. Monterey Trail is a team that returns a lot of players. West Campus, I don't think, played a single game during the spring, if I remember right. Correct. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of unknown, I think. And with basketball season during the spring, it wasn't really a real season. I think with football, there was some sense of normality. With baseball and softball, there was a full season for both. I mean, with basketball, I think got really shortchanged on the entire season because most teams played less than 10 games, which is less than a third of most teams' seasons in normal years.
You're so right, Cameron. The Sac City Unified only had 1 or 2 games. It was so hard, and it's still restrictive in the Sac City Unified, which includes West Campus, which includes your number 5 McClatchy Lions, and only parents are still allowed, and masks are still a mandate. So, all right, Intercom, Grant, I think went 10-0 in the spring. Whitney, is that the school that has the impressive post player who's a sophomore?
Yep. Yeah, she's a sophomore. Has offers from a lot of. Harper Peterson. She 6'3" guard/wing, has a lot of Division I offers. Really talented player. I mentioned it earlier in a podcast with 65 Sports. I said I've never seen a girl with that size at that age level handle the rock so well. I mean, she's a really impressive guard /wing, so she's going to be a really fun player to watch. And speaking of youth, the buzz around Sacramento right now in girls high school basketball is Folsom freshman Ava Rawlings. Obviously, she has offers from Cal, USC, and I mean, she's really impressive. I think she had 17 points in the season opener against Wood. So, I mean, to have that production as a freshman already is incredible. So
no, and Folsom had a girl, Mackenzie Forbes, who was a 4-year player. Now she's playing at she went to Cal initially. Now she's at Harvard. So 4-year varsity players has been a staple for girls basketball forever, and you could build around that. You just talked about some of those players, and McClatchy and Laguna Creek are Metropolitan Conference rivals. So that'll be a showdown that'll play itself out. And kudos to Folsom. You know, Folsom football has been strong. Folsom basketball has been strong. Girls basketball has been strong. And what else do you like about Folsom basketball? They got a coach who's scheduling up, and they're looking for their first section championship. They've had some glimpses, but this is some uncharted territory, and they would be the favorite right now.
Yeah, and I mean, he told me early in the season that this is probably the deepest roster he's ever had in his 12 years at Folsom. I know he initially, when he got the job, his team struggled a little bit in league play, and now for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, they've been pretty good. Folsom obviously played really well with Mackenzie Forbes, like you mentioned, then kind of the new blood of the program has played really well. And so I think it's impressive. Then obviously with Oak Ridge at number 2, you have Tegan Brown, who is arguably probably the best player in the area in her class, head to University of Washington.
How
Ella
about
Ray
that?
is another post player who's off to the University of Pennsylvania. So, I mean, the talent level in Sacramento girls basketball is incredible, and it's only rising. I mean, we saw UC Davis and Sac State last week. UC Davis beat Oregon last night. And so the
Right.
talent, I think, in girls basketball is rising, and it's only getting stronger as the years
Well,
go on.
and Cameron, having done this a few years, girls basketball has been so strong around here for a long time. It's really kind of towered over the boys. The boys may play above the rim, and there's more bigger crowds sometimes. But you ask anybody who's coached boys and girls, like Steve White up at Oak Ridge, and he likes how the girls are fundamentally sound. They don't have egos, and they keep it all in check, and very impressive. And Sac State, you talked about Sac State. Del Oro has an impressive player who is committed to Sac State.
Yes, Madison Butcher. I mean, she's a really good player. They beat Lincoln last night, I think, by 25-ish, something like that. And so she's a really talented player. I thought she could get some Division I offers, and she picked Sac State, I think, over some kind of bigger schools. So
Good.
kudos to Mark Campbell at Sacramento State for recruiting local.
Yeah, and we're going to have Troy Taylor on next week, the Sac State football coach, and people are staying local, so it's great to see. All right, let's take a quick look at the Sacramento Bees top 20 boys basketball rankings, and we're going to start from the top. I went with Sheldon. Actually, we'll go this way. We'll go. We got Intercom's a team. Some people have told me, Cameron, that Intercom may be the area's best team. Okay, Rocklin, Steve Taylor's been around. Whitney's been around. Granite Bay, Wood Creek, Oakmont, Ponderosa, Franklin, Casumas, Oaks, Antelope. So you got teams from the Oak Grove Unified. You got teams from Placer County, all subject to change. These are all preseason rankings. There was no season last season. There was a shortened spring season. So we'll see. We'll update these rankings in the coming weeks. I think we both agree we want to get some games under everybody's belt to take a look. A real quick thought on number 18, Franklin Davion Wright. We'll do a bigger segment on him, but he's a star player for the Franklin Wildcats who was not playing basketball this season, much like Lucas Wolf of Folsom football, a heart situation. So that's a tough blow there. These kids, Cameron, we know they live for this. This is what they do. This is their existence. So our thoughts out to Mr. Wright. We will tell his story as he has great perspective. Let's take a look at the top 10 on this grouping here. Cameron, I went with Sheldon. I kind of aligned with what Cal High Sports had. Jesuit was our number one team during the spring, went 16-0. Elk Grove, I think, went 10-1 in the spring. Elk Grove's got some great players. Vanden, Folsom, Grant, Sac High, Capital Christian, El Camino, Burbank. El Camino's kind of come out of nowhere, though it's been around for 100 years. So in short, Cameron, we're going to have some good hoops, boys and girls, and It's just getting warmed up. There's all kinds of tournaments this week. And next week, we encourage people to go out and take a peek. But that's girls and boys basketball are on par, and we cover them equally. We do prep of the weeks. We cover games. We do rankings. We implore people, parents, alums, players, coaches, reach out, tell us who you got.
I think the theme with the boys rankings is there's a lot of familiar teams in there. I mean, you have Folsom, you have the Vandens, you have a lot of teams that are, I mean, Sheldon obviously has been number one for a while.
Grant has been around, yeah.
I think I was talking to my dad about this earlier. I mean, I think girls basketball, as far as talent wise, has surpassed the boys just because there's a lot more girls who are going Division I, and it's not a knock on boys basketball in this area, but just a lot more girls are heading to the Division I ranks, and it's harder, I think, to get scholarships from the area and the boys. And what's happening, I think, is a lot of really talented players who play in this area are going on to prep schools, and so I think that it's kind of diluted the talent somewhat. And I mean, that's a bigger issue for another day, but I think it just is something that
is a good topic.
Yeah.
No, Cameron, you're right. And I've been doing this at the B for 30 years, and girls basketball has always been a little higher than boys. Not head to head, certainly. They don't play head to head, but in terms of everything you said, more NorCal championships, more state championships, just on a team-wide level, and then a ton more scholarship players. And Sheldon, for all its greatness in boys basketball, and these kids are good students and good citizens, they don't get a lot of scholarship guys. And it's because it's hard to break through, if you're a 6'2" guard and you're trying to play anywhere. Whereas girls, we, like you said, we got some of these girls who are 6'4" and ball handling skills. And Vicky Ball was at Sac High in 2007, played at Tennessee, which was the national number one powerhouse. So that was some 12, 14, 15 years ago. And so it's been like that in the 90s and the 2000s, where there's just been so much talent for girls, and it doesn't thin out. And the one thing about the girls is a small school Colfax can hang with a Division I school, not just hang with them, but beat them. We don't see that in boys. You're not going to see a small school taking on Sheldon and winning. We can't see that in girls. So that's what helps even it out, and that's what helps make the rankings a lot easier to sort too.
Player I'm most excited to watch this fall / spring, Ben Rosenbro from Sacramento High, one of the best players in his class, 2024 class. Just an electric player. I've never seen someone probably as talented as a freshman. I mean, I've had a chance to see some really good players play as a freshman in the last few years. Obviously, Jordan Brown, Noah Blackwell, Wood Creek. I know Jordan Ford played as a freshman. And so there's been a lot of guys. Issa Silva, another one. And so there's been a lot of really talented freshmen that come out of this area. But, I mean, I've never seen a guy as talented as him.
Well, and he was a kid, great call on Ben, and he's a sophomore. And already hearing rumblings that Prolific Prep, the prep school in Napa, is trying to grab him, extract him out of there. We'll talk about that topic at another show. You're right. That'd be a good topic. And, you know, a lot of the coaches they feel like these prep schools come closing in and trying to grab their guys. And I know the prep schools mean well, we're going to develop them and blah, blah, blah. But I'm a purist, you know, let him stay at his school. And you know, we all know in high school basketball, one player could really make the difference between a good team and a dominant team. Real quick, we overlooked them a little bit, but in the girls' rankings, I think your number 2 or 3 team was Antelope, number 1 team all last spring.
Yep.
Powerhouse in recent years. Janiyah Harrell, talking about all-time great players, is down at Stanford. How's that for achievement? So what does Coach Sean Chambers have for this season? The Titans still pretty good?
Yeah, they'll be solid. I mean, so they have a transfer in Mary Carter, who played at Rocklin, was an all-league player. I'm not sure if she's going to be able to get cleared right away. She's a senior, really talented player. I'm not sure where she'll end up college-wise, but she'll definitely be up there. And so, I mean, Sean still has some really talented players. He's a great coach, great guy. And so I have no doubt he'll definitely develop and make Antelope a championship-type team still.
Outstanding. Cameron, my friend, keep up the good work. Follow Cameron every day. Cameron Salerno Media on Instagram, always great posts there, and you know what's going on with the student rooting sections and player lists. So that's always good stuff there. On Twitter, on SacB.com every day, in print regularly. We appreciate you, sir. We'll see you real soon.
Folsom 28, De La Salle 27. Book it.
There you go. I'm going to go De La Salle 31-24. That's the way I'm going to see it. So, all right, Cameron, we appreciate you. Thank you for Mitch Stevens for joining us, my good friend from Max Prep San Francisco Chronicle. Thank you to all the people behind the scenes, none more influential than David Caraccio, my friend and my producer for this show. We thank all of the viewers and the subscribers and the followers. Keep it up. That's why we're on here, is because of your interest and your following, and we appreciate you. We'll see you everybody real soon next week.